Yeah, Vidisha, we are live.
Shall we start?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this final session of the ongoing series of Grounded Voices. We have been conducting the Grounded Voices series since the beginning of this year. And today will be the final session for this year 2021, and also of the ongoing series on the 6 scheduled areas of India's Northeast. So we have the session titled as Governance, Resource Rights, Ethnicity in the 6 scheduled areas of Northeast India. In the first episode of this series, we had covered the ADCs of Meghalaya. The second session was on the Laimara and Chakma ADCs of Mizoram. And in the third session, we had speakers from the ADCs of Tripura. So, and today is the fourth part of this series, where we have a very interesting panel with speakers from the three councils of Assam, where 6th schedule is applied. We have speakers from the Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council, the Dima Hasao Autonomous Council, and the Bodoland Territorial Council of Assam. We have as our moderator amongst us, Dr. Amrita Gogoi, and she'll be moderating the session for today. We have previously heard these discussions on broadly the provision, the 6th schedule rights and the historical importance of such protections and how such safeguards were ensured by the communities in these regions, and how since this were introduced, how they have been implemented, and how the amendments have affected, and with newer amendments happening, how things are right now in these areas, in these councils, and how the state governments have responded to the demands, the rights, or the well-being of people of these communities and in these areas, and also how civil society responds to the concerns of the 6th schedule protected areas, and how the center or the state continuously tries to bring newer changes to the like positively, or if it has negative impacts on the constitutional privileges that has been ensured by the constitution. So I'll hand it over to Amrita. She is associated with the Department of Political Science in Dibrugarh University, and she has done her research around gender issues, around war, militancy, combat in conflict regions. And she also has a few publications to her name around these subjects. And hopefully we'll have a very interesting session, and we are eager to hear everyone. And I'll hand it over to Amrita. Please take forward the session.
Thank you, Vidisha. As the moderator of the session, I wish to welcome all the speakers. And one should actually thank the one who put this very interesting panel of former ministers, present council member, activists, academics, lawyers together. And we have speakers from all the autonomous councils of Assam today here. I'm sure after the session today, we will be going back with a lot of food for thought. We will be having a lot of deeper insights into different aspects of the working of the governance in autonomous councils of Assam. I can see a lot of my students in the audience, I'm sure they will learn a lot. What is interesting again is that we have 3 female panelists, and the first speaker that I wish to invite is Holiram Terang. Holiram Terang is former minister and political activist from Karbi Anglong. He has been elected to the Assam Legislative Assembly for multiple terms on the banner of People's Democratic Front, which later merged into the Autonomous State Demand Committee. As a political activist, he has been actively engaged with a variety of issues from concerns with people's classification as indigenous tribes in Assam and its implications in the context of ASDC, to issues regarding indigenous tribes in Assam and its implications, to issues regarding ensuring food and shelter for workers, Assam citizens during the COVID pandemic, to the need to understand the history of Assam with regards to citizenship issues, in taking a stand and coming together against Ka NRC. Over to you, sir.
I have been introduced generally, but what I can say is that I'm no expert on the 6th schedule, because I have never been in the Autonomous Council, and I have not studied it as an academician as well. But still, then I do have interest on the 6th schedule, and I do come from a 6th schedule area. Now, we do have a lot of issues on the present working of the 6th schedule. I think the problems that we face in the 6th schedule areas, I think sometimes we have to go back to history, especially during the British era, and especially in the debates of the Constituent Assembly. I do remember reading the speeches of Reverend J.J.M. Nichols Roy, and the way he was, the way the issue was treated by the other non-tribals from Assam. But Reverend J.J.M. Nichols Roy and Jaypal Singh, I think they had defended that the 6th schedule should be there. Now, what Ambedkar and the Constituent Assembly wanted was real protection for the tribals, and practically and initially it was meant for the hill tribes, the area which were excluded and partially excluded during the British times. But now later on, the Bodoland area has been included in the 6th schedule. Now, I think we do have common problems in all the 6th schedule areas, but the problems vary. Like Mizoram has got a 6th schedule only in few districts on there. Now, regarding this governance, resource rights, and ethnicity. Now, the first thing that I can say is that, so regarding the word governance, the 6th schedule does have lots of contents wherein it is supposed to give lots of autonomy to the council authorities there. Now the point is, I won't go into the details of the paragraph-wise things, but initially the council were given a very less power to govern themselves. But I think we all know about the movement for separation from Assam in the 60s, which was led by Captain Williamson Sangma. Although the movement actually, the struggle actually started because especially the hill tribes started feeling that they were repressed, they were suppressed, they were subjugated. And ultimately this all-party hill trust conference was formed, and the districts of Khasi, Jankiam, and Garo Hills got separated. And even Karbi Anglong, Deed and Mikil Hills and North Kachar Hills district, they were participants from these areas also, and they were given a chance to join in Meghalaya or have a separate autonomous state at that time. But the leaders of the North Kachar Hills, Deed and North Kachar Hills, and Deed and Mikil Hills, now this Karbi Anglong and Dima Hasao, they wanted to stay with Assam itself. Now, at that time, the state government, especially, they wanted to devolve, you can say, devolve some more powers to the councils, but they were not allowed. So what happened was, again after 60s, also in the 70s, even 80s, there were lots of movements for autonomous state or more autonomy. Now, the grievances of the people there is that the people in the hill areas, the tribals, whether it is the Karbi, Dimasa, Mar, Kuki, Rengma, or other tribes, they are not treated equally with other people of Assam. And the effort of the state government, the ruling parties, the state is, to subjugate, to suppress the people in the hill areas. Now, whatever it is, now in the late 80s, you can say, in the mid 80s, there was a movement for autonomy once again in the three districts of Assam. And an MOU was signed in 1995. Now, at that time, 14 subjects were given to the autonomous councils to legislate. And these 14 subjects comes out to about 25 departments, executive departments. And 30 executive departments were transferred from the from the state government to the autonomous councils. Now here, it looks great. It looks great in the sense that, the council is able to govern over so many departments, starting from education up to PWD and so many 30 departments. But there are two things. When you have to govern, you have to run a department. You need few things, and the basic thing is natural finance. Number one. Number two is the structured administration. That's the bureaucracy. Now, as for the bureaucracy, the state government does not much hesitate to send the officers to the area to be deputed to the autonomous councils. But as for finance, there are two things. One is, we know about the planning commission, though now it is not called the planning commission. Niti Aayog, I think it's called now. The councils were not represented in the discussion with the planning commission. I think same is the case with the Niti Aayog as well right now. But in the budget, there is a separate provision for the 6 scheduled areas. In the budget, it is called scheduled areas, and the other is general areas. As scheduled areas here, after the border area, it includes the 3 autonomous councils. Even for the scheduled areas, the only few officers were associated, but they were not allowed to go for discussion with the planning commission at that time. And whatever allocation is given by the planning commission or the state budget, they were supposed to be released in 2 equal installments. But it is never done. Never is never done. Number one. And number two is, though on paper the autonomous councils are allowed to make their own budgets, but practically it is no. Practically, but because the councils, they do make their own budgets, but when it comes to the state government, they make their own budgets again on behalf of the council. It's presented to the assembly, and assembly passes it as such. Then next comes is the release of the funds. Now, now the point is, this is, and the other is the legislative power. I was saying that there are 14 subjects which the councils can legislate, and in the 4 September MOS with the government, I think a few more subjects were given. Now the point is, though the councils are allowed to legislate, actually the governor has to give his assent to that. And when the governor has to give to his assent, he naturally listens to the state government and not to the council. So practically for the last so many decades, no new law could be passed by the autonomous council. So this is the practical problem that's going on there. Now this is the legislative part and the governance part. And as now, this is the governance part. Then regarding these resources, it seems, it looks like, the councils are given the power over land, But there have been cases in the Supreme Court where the council lost cases because they wanted to cancel the land allotment, the patta to somebody else, but they got defeated, and the particular person got the land back because the particular word alienation of land was not there in the schedule. That power was not given to the Autonomous Council. So it has to be amended once again. So that's one thing on land. Even on land also, the the council doesn't have proper authority. Number one. And number two, regarding forests, the council do have power over forests which are not reserved. Now, the state government has the tendency to declare reserve forests every now and then. So once an area is declared as reserve forest, the Autonomous Council doesn't have any authority on that. So, as we know, in the hill areas, especially, even in the borderland areas, we do have lots of forests. And if the state government declares the areas to be forest, then the council loses authority over it. This one. And the other is on resources, especially on the mines and minerals. The council doesn't have any authority over mines and minerals. I can't say about the Bodoland area, but in the North Cachar, in the Hasao area and Karbi, we do have a lot of limestone and coal. We do have limestone and coal, and the council doesn't have power over this. And not only limestone and coal, I can tell you that platinum has been found in Karbi. Platinum, I think that's what do you call? The value of platinum is much higher than gold and diamond. And uranium has been found. Now, both this platinum and uranium, over this, the council will not have authority. The council does have authority over coal, not over limestone. So these are very rich resources, and the council doesn't have power or authority over this. In short, is that. Now, regarding ethnicity, the tendency of the governments, successive governments, except maybe one or two personalities, maybe in the Indian level, in the national level, maybe few persons were there during Nehru's time, who were sympathetic to the cause of the tribals. And in Assam, I know we can say, I think that Bodoland, yes, I think we should speak about him, that he was one of the persons who could at least give some protection to the tribals. Then after that, actually, the tendency of, or you can say the force of successive governments, both in center and the state, were to erode the autonomy of the councils, and also to suppress, to subjugate the people. So when you suppress, subjugate the people, you don't care about their ethnicity, you don't care about their culture, language, all that. Now, the latest thing that has happened, besides the earlier ones, is, say, one memorandum of settlement was signed between 6 rebel groups and the government on 4th September this year. Therein, besides other clauses, there was one particular clause which says that 10 seats of the Autonomous Council will stand as open. Then other 34 will be reserved. And besides the 10 open seats, there will be 6. There will be provision for 6 nomination of 6 persons. Now, the 10 open seats mean what? It means that non-tribals will be able to contest in that. Now, I'm not saying that the non-tribals should not be protected, but the basic fundamental intent of the 6th schedule is that it is for the protection of the tribals, and the council is for the tribals only, and by the tribals. So whoever are there who are not tribals, but who are indigenous to the place, they have to be protected, but not through these measures. And this is one way of the government to once again, through the back door, we can say, to subjugate the people there. So then there was one paragraph, one clause in the MOS that I mentioned, that the government of Assam will decide the script for the Karbis. Very interesting. Very interesting in the sense that, you know, since the late 70s, we have been using the Roman script, and it is not universally accepted. Now suddenly comes in this MOS, the Memorandum of Settlement, wherein the state government says that they will decide what the Karbis will write in which script. This is very interesting. So these are a few of the things that I would like to say right now. Then maybe later, if I have time, I can comment. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for highlighting different issues, limitations that the Karbi Autonomous Council is facing. And most importantly, thank you for bringing in the role of the people, the movement that led to having the Autonomous Council. When you said by the people, I think that's really important to remember again and again that people did have a role to play, and that's important for the present as well. So next we have Junmani Basumatary. Junmani Basumatary is Assistant Professor of Political Science at Kokrajhar Bodoland University, Kokrajhar, and her area of research revolves around poverty, socioeconomic development and blocks of Kokrajhar and Boro women. She works around customary laws and rural development.
Yes, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Especially, I would like to thank the National Alliance for People's Movement. First of all, giving me this wonderful opportunity. Again, I would like to thank our moderator, Ankita Gogoi, and then my co-panelist. Good evening to each and everyone. And I would, my heartfelt thanks goes to the NAPM organizing committee. And yes, so this is one of the talk, whose ideology is a grounded voice, you know. So from my land, so we call Namaskar in Kolumbai, okay? So my one hand, I cannot do like this because I'm holding my mobile phone. Unfortunately, on time, my laptop is not working. So this is what happens. So anyway, thank you so much again. My prior co-panelist, Sir Holiram Terang. So he has been so experienced person, and then almost covering the issues of the council areas in the Assam, especially in case of Assam. I would like to mention that what are the major issues that councils are facing, especially in the tribal areas, I mean, tribal dominated areas. Yes, of course. Like if we talk about the 6th schedule, especially if we talk about the 6th schedule to the Constitution of India. So this is the 6th schedule that provision has brought basically to protect the tribal interests, and here nothing else. So that's why maybe there is a constitution upon constitution typo, because there is a constitution for overall people, again to protect the tribal interests, the tribal needs and necessities for what they are known as a tribal, because tribal are not similar to other non-tribal, because I'm just referring non-tribal just to make a clear difference about, just to focus the meaning of it. So yes, so tribal basically to protect the tribal interests, to protect the tribal customary laws, to protect the tribal way of living, their way of habitation, so everything. So that's why there is a constitution called in the constitution there is a provision called 6th schedule. So yes, in case of BTC, my focus will be on BTC, so which is on working of BTC and introspection. What I would like to give an introspection about the BTC, Bodoland Territorial Council. So prior coming to the Bodoland Territorial Council, I would like to look at back to the history of the Bodos. So that history of the Bodos, if we call who are the Bodos, then Bodos are one of the early inhabitants of the Assam, which historians claims that Bodos are the one of the early inhabitants of the Assam. So they are known as an indigenous group. They are known as an ethnic tribal group. They are known as a tribal people of Assam. So interestingly, the Bodos of Assam are the largest community among the all other tribes inhabits inside the Assam. So the movement of the Bodos, when Bodos started demanding such kind of a thing, the result is in 2003. It's a very long history. So 1920, before India's independence, the first Bodo, the handful of elite people from the Bodo, elite group people from the Bodo. So they're very a handful of people, like they were like Kachar and Brahma, who is known as a father of Brahma Dharma in the Bodo society itself, and who is the social reformer among the Bodos. In 1920 itself, he has spread the Brahma Dharma in the Bodo society. So among like Kachar and Brahma and the Rupnath Brahma, they went to meet the Simon Commission when he was visited India. So that time the capital, which is administrative area was in Meghalaya, capital of Assam was known as in Meghalaya. So they went to the Meghalaya to demand the political representation from the Bodos. So that is the beginning for the outright or asking for a political demand from the Bodos. So after that, after India's independence in the 1952, in among the Bodo community, they have formed one of the literary organization which is known as the Bodo Saito Sabha in 1952. Then after that, though the Bodo Saito Sabha will be known as one of the literary organization, they work for the literature, they work for the language of the Bodos, and that is side by side it was shaping the political awakening for the Bodo people also. At the same time, what happened, like after 1952, like in 1967, in around 1967, so there was a plain tribals group, PTCA, 10 tribals council of Assam, which is formed, and they have started demanding for all the plain tribes of the Assam inside the Assam, demanding for called like separate state, which is named as Udayachal. So after that, in the 1967 itself, there is a like birth of APSU, which is known as one of the strongest student union in India or in Assam, particularly in Northeast India. All Assam student, all Bodo student union, APSU. So after that, UDSL movement has started. Then that UDSL movement, which is for some many reasons that got failed again. Then 1971, there was a movement called literary movement, like asking for Roman script for the Bodo people. So later on, which is resolved in as giving handing over to the Devanagari script, not the Roman script. So and then after that, like APSU, which is also like in 1667, which is formed in 1967, but the momentum of APSU movement that is got from the 1987 onwards. Then after that, 1990 onwards, there was a like famous leader from the Bodo student union, which is known as a father of Bodo nation, like we call Bodo nation. So that is like Upendranath Brahma. So in his initiative, like that movement took for the separate state move. After that, like that was like a prolonged demand mass movement that has rigorous demand movement has taken place. And after that, many young and women, all the from the corners of Bodo people, they have get together just to fight for the separate state. Then that has got twisted again in 1993. There was a BAC, Bodoland Autonomous Council, that is known as a BAC, which is formed in 1993, and the majority of the people, they have demanded for the separate state, but they have got this council. Then this kind of a disappointment that Bodo people has faced, then they realize that this is not the real what we demanded for. So then they have 1996, this BAC has dissolved again, and then after that the birth of BLT, and then in 2003 with the signing with the BLT and the central government and the state of Assam, they have signed for BTC. So in 2003, 10 February, BTC Accord was signed, and the Memorandum of Settlement that was signed, MOS, and after that the formation of the BTC under the 6th schedule of the Constitution of the India, and then there was many amendments which are amended, and the special features of the BTCs are like certain special features are there, especially the other tribal councils within the Assam or outside of Assam. The executive member used to be like 30, but in case of BTC, they have increased till 46 members. Again, like in the 6th schedule itself, they have amended for the BTC for many reasons, like just to which are suitable, applicable, or which are not applicable to BTC. And in terms of that, BTC is one of the like interestingly unique a little bit in comparison to the other district councils. So in BTC, 46 members are there, and then among that 30 can be from the tribal, protected for the tribal, and the 5 seats for non-tribal, since BTC is known as a Bodoland Territorial Council, which is majorly dominated by the other non-tribal groups also. And keeping view in those particular aspects that government of Assam already, and in the MOS, in that signing moment, they have amended lots of provisions of the 6th schedule, and accordingly this tribal area, which is the seats for the council members, executive members, which is divided for like 30 for the tribal people and 30 reserved for the only the non-tribal can contest, and the another 5 will be open for all, where the tribal but non-tribal can participate. Again, the 6 will be nominated by the governor, where 2 seats will be for the women, especially reserved for the women. So again, the provisions, revision of the list of scheduled tribe of the area, which is amended again. Again, the which are amended increase the number of seats for the BTC, which I have already mentioned. Again, interestingly, like the Panchayati Raj system, which is exist in the council area, which is seized, which is stopped working. I mean, they have seized the power of Panchayat in the area when the BTC has formed, and then they have conferred a power to the Bodoland Territorial Council. And recently, in place of Panchayati Raj, there is a VCDC, Village Level Development Council, which is working inside the area. So here, basically, the issues I would like to highlight about the BTC area, what are the major challenges we can see in this council area. And interestingly, one of the interesting quotation I found, I read in one magazine mentioning that BTC is one of the fastest growing, developing district autonomous council among all the council which is exist in Northeast India. I think personally, which is true, I have to say. And basically, BTC has conferred 40 subjects where the BTC can make power, they will have a full power and functions along with the they can make policy on that. And those are the administrative infrastructure, PWD, transport, irrigation, flood control, soil conservation, health and family welfare, PHC, education, land and revenue. Among all these 40 subjects, within that 40 subject, only one subject, which is relief and rehabilitation, which is not yet conferred. So interestingly, there is again a twist when the BTR has formed recently in 2020 in 18 December, maybe, yes. So there is an interesting twist again, which is I will touch after that. And basically, I would like to mention the challenges inside the BTC. What are the major challenges that people here, especially the governing, that is facing? That is like the problem that after the formation of the BTC, that is with other communities. Basically, I have already mentioned that BTC is not only with the Bodos. The people here inside, there is a many other minority groups also, which after forming BTC, they become a minority inside the BTC, but earlier they were not. So there is many other community like Raba, Garo, Nepali, Muslims, Assamese, and then especially Rajbangsis, you know. So all these things are the, like co-inhabitants inside the BTC. So that was the one major problem, like right after formation of the BTC, like there was a kind of a unsatisfaction which was occurred inside the region. And as a result, there was a calling of buns and the bun culture, you know, like road blocking and the conflict, major conflict, which is occurred right after formation of the BTC, which was in 2008 and 2012. So where the many people, they have become landless, homeless. So they have to still have to stay in the relief camps, you know. The effect of that conflict was very major during that time. I think newspaper, if you could remember, you maybe have seen in the newspaper covering of these incidents. Okay, so these are the certain problem. And then again, when the Bodo people have, on the other hand, right after formation of the BTC, ongoing, or on the other side, the EPSU, they have demanded ceaselessly about the separate state. Again, inside the BTC, those are the major inhabitants of the BTC, other community like Rajbangsi and the Adivasis, they have started demanding for the ST status. So again, the Rajbangsi, they have demanded for the separate state called Kamatapur. So these are the problem during that, right after inception of BTC, that those problem was very much prominent. And it was especially many of the denied that Bodos will planted conflict that and then many Bodo inhabitants, they will claim that these are politically planned conflict, but because that other non-tribals or minority groups, they were fueled by the outsider elements. So these are the very conflict situation. And once upon a time, there was a situation was there. We have a major institution like Bodoland University and the Central Institute of Technology. Students, they fear to come here for education, because if we call the Kokrajhar, like it's a place of fire kind of, you know, like, so many people have this kind of fear to enter inside a region. So altogether, the people or the young generation, especially the student, they have already affected with the Ban culture and a lot of issues like conflict. So there was a unsettled situation, which is slowly, gradually now in the stage of curving kind of, I mean, little bit come down. And especially now, right now, there was a comparison to earlier, a little bit peaceful atmosphere we can witness. So there is many other challenges like the present BTC area include, which is a non-tribal population, particularly concentration in urban and semi-urban localities in facing formidable difficulties, especially attaining additional and exclusive autonomy, while already experienced during the previous Bodoland movement. Then the creation of the BTC has shored the relation between Bodos and the Rajbonshis, Bodos in Karbi Anglong, and the Karbis there. So it is hereby difficult to find a lasting solution to the endemic ultra-ethnic and tribal unrest in council areas. And Assam in general and BTC in particular, with a multi-ethnic and multilingual population, which is extremely fragile in this respect, so we need to give a proper attention. Again, there is just two sets of authorities which is existing. Sometimes it is very confusing. One is that like deputy commissioner who represent the state, and the BTC on the other. Like certain powers are there, especially law and order and the finance. Like so, like earlier speaker also mentioned about like to govern one council or to administer one locality or area or council. So we need finance basically. So you may have different policies. You may have a lot of developmental policies. If the finance is not passed on time, like that has to come from the state and wait for that state. Like when they will confer, then only we can progress, we can start working. So that was the major problem that many leaders on time, they have complained that the finance is the major problem, that they never get on time the funds and all. So because of that, they have to wait for the work and the delaying in the progress. So which is like two sets of authority. Now after BTR, interestingly, again, APSU has resolved with a peace talk, and then which is named as a peace talk. And
Sorry to interrupt, yeah.
Junmani, can you hear us? I think she's frozen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you can request the next speaker, Amrita.
Yes. May I now request Daniel Langthasa, member of Autonomous Council, Dima Hasao. He is also a digital creator and an artist, to kindly deliver his speech.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Amrita. First of all, I would like to thank everyone who has joined us here today, including the listeners. And I was very keenly listening to what Mr. Holiram Terang was sharing with us. And I was just going through the notes, and then the Junmani Basumatary's sharing got interrupted. So first of all, thank you, National Alliance of People's Movement. Thank you for having me here today. And it would be a very enriching experience for me also to understand more about sixth schedule as a whole, and maybe the other issues that the other councils in Assam, whether it be BTR and whether it be Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council, they are facing right now. And again, I'd like to thank, because for the last couple of days, I was listening to the previous sessions that you had with members from Tripura and from Mizoram. So thank you very much for, in fact, organizing this whole thing. I think what we need right now is more of these exchanges to happen, especially for the young people who are living in all these 6 scheduled areas. Myself, I'm a elected member of the NCL's Autonomous Council in Dima Hasao. Dima Hasao, as you know, was previously known as North Cachar Hills District in Assam. And in 2010, the district was renamed to Dima Hasao District. So let me start with a little bit of introduction and some info on Dima Hasao District and maybe North Cachar Hills Autonomous Council for people who are not familiar with our district and the council. So North Cachar Hills Autonomous Council was in fact the first autonomous council which was formed in 1952. And at that time, the district was known as North Cachar Hills District, and it was predominantly inhabited by the Dimasa tribe, the Zemi Naga tribe, the Kuki tribe, and later on, more tribes also came in from neighboring districts. And after that, Mar tribe also became like the fourth big tribe which resides in this district. Today, in the present scenario, I would say the district and also the North Cachar Hills Autonomous Council might be arguably one of the most diverse in terms of representation of different tribes. For example, in the NCL's Autonomous Council, where we have 28 elected representatives from representing 28 constituencies, we have 7 different tribes representing their own communities at this point of time. Dimasa being the majority. Apart from Dimasa, there are Zemina, Kuki, Mar, Rangkhol, Biate, Khasi. So there's this huge and also there are some other tribes which have not been represented in the council as of yet, but demand is also growing on, and also as per the MOS signed between the militant groups DHT and DHTJ and the state and central government, just like Karbi Anglong, very similar to Karbi Anglong, there's supposed to be delimitation and more constituencies are to be added. So there are some demands from smaller tribal groups seeking representation in the council. Also, we have 2 nominated members in the council, so it takes the total tally to 30 from 28. And in the last couple of decade or so, mostly these 2 nominated seats are given to the Bengali community and the Gorkha community, and which these 2 communities happen to be the 2 biggest non-tribal communities which you can find in Dima Hasao. So that has been the norm. Whichever party comes in power, the 2 nominated seats are given to non-tribal communities, mostly Bengali and Gorkha communities, so as to give them proper representation in the council. So this is a brief history of and the current dynamics of the council and the district. Many might be aware, many might not be aware, but the district had a huge militancy problem in the early 90s, which started in the early 90s and peaked in the early 2000, when there was there was the political demand of an autonomous state, which was spearheaded by parties like the Autonomous State Demand Committee, both in Karbi Anglong and in Dima Hasao. So simultaneously, the armed militant movement began in Dima Hasao district. And in the early 2000, there were two major groups. First, it was one group, the Dima Halam Dauga, known as DHD, but which splintered into two groups. So these years, in the early 2000, there was a lot of violence, there was a lot of bloodshed, unfortunately, which even spilled on to the normal public, peace-loving public. I say peace-loving because, Dima Hasao, like I said earlier, it has a diverse mix of communities. There are on record around 14 different tribal groups and around 8-9 non-tribal groups, and all these different groups have been fairly living in peace for a very long time, and especially after independence, while there were many armed struggles happening elsewhere, like in the Naga Hills and then later in the Lusha Hills. But North Kachar Hills was relatively peaceful, and people were, in at peace and in harmony. It was only very late, like I said earlier, in the early 90s, and then the peak was during the early 2000 when militancy was at its peak, which spilled onto the people, and then there were ethnic clashes between Dimasas and Karbis, and then Dimasas and Zeminagas. That was a very unfortunate period, of course. And then ultimately, the DHD N and DHD-J groups signed an MOS with the state and central government. And in 2009, after the peace agreement, all the militants came overground and rehabilitation was done. But that's a different story. Maybe I'd like to add on that later. So in 2010, one of the demands of the DHD-J group was to rename the group, rename the district from North Kachar Hills to Dima Hasao, which led to a lot of opposition. Dima Hasao, by the way, means Dimasa people of the hills. Hasao means hills in Dimasa language. So as the DHD group were basically fighting for separate statehood for the Dimasa community, which of course, after the MOS agreement, which we have not really achieved, which the DHD has also not achieved. But one of the result of that was the change in the name of the district from North Kachar Hills to Dima Hasao. And from then on, politically, a lot of things changed in Dima Hasao district. The other tribal groups kind of like came together and opposed this change of the name in the district, which also created both different political groups also under the banner of IPF. They call themselves the Indigenous Peoples Forum, which is kind of like defunct right now, but politically it is defunct, but non-politically as a social group, they're still very active, and they are right now, for the last couple of years, since 2010, have been demanding for a separate district. So they basically want present-day Dima Hasao district to be bifurcated into two districts. That is the demand of the IPF. And out of these two districts, one district should comprise of people who are where the majority is not Dimasa. So basically, they're saying that they want the districts to be bifurcated into two. One can be for the Dimasas, but one has to be for the non-Dimasas. And their point of discontentment, and they keep saying this again and again, the IPF Indigenous Peoples Forum, that it is because of the undemocratic renaming of the district from North Cachar Hills to Dima Hasao district, and the demand still lies today. And frequently, after a couple of months, the IPF keeps on, calling a band, and then the IPF holds talks with the Assam government. Whatever discussions happen are very hush hush. The general public does not really have an idea of what is really going around inside those rooms. But these has also led since 2009-10 to a very political divide between Dimasas and non-Dimasas, which I know any party who is ruling the council would like to dismiss, and we would also always, there's always the larger interest of everyone that we all need to maintain peace and brotherhood, and we need to stay united. And of course, there's no denial of that. Everyday efforts are there from all directions, no doubt about that. But we also cannot deny, we cannot also forget that there has been a divide which earlier kind of did not exist, and which will be there for quite some time. Coming to issues, I would like to now say in brief some of the issues that I have personally found as a elected member of the NCL's Autonomous Council. By the way, I have been elected from Haflong constituency. Haflong is also the headquarter of Dima Hasao district. So these are some of the issues, according to me, that I have experienced in my 3 years as an elected member of the NCL's Autonomous Council when it comes to governance, resource rights, and ethnicity, which happens to be the topic that we all are discussing about today. So first of all, when it comes to governance, what I've noticed is something which is similar in many 6 scheduled areas of Assam in particular. In fact, all the 3 6 scheduled areas in Assam, BTR, Karbi Anglong, and Dima Hasao, have been, I think, kind of victim to this, and that is militancy getting into the political system of the 6 scheduled areas, which has led to compromise in corruption and usage of funds, which is a huge issue today. And it's very difficult for me to see any light of the day currently, because what has happened is both in Karbi Anglong, BTR, and BTR has a new government right now, but previously, and in Dima Hasao, when the militant groups who were in all their respective areas fighting for their own separate statehoods, so when, of course, the central government did not agree to their statehood claims, finally they made a compromise, and then most of them in return agreed for financial grants, basically, and freebies. So these militants then, ultimately turned into contractors and businessmen and politicians, and then which funded their political aspirations. But you see, the thing is, when you take all these freebies, you inspire another generation to follow your path, which is exactly what is happening in Dima Hasao today, which you would see with the recent scenario which arose due to another group called the DNLA, Dimasa National Liberation Army, which surrendered of course, which gave up their arms quite recently. They were also demanding for a separate state for the Dimasas. And currently, they have surrendered and they are in talks with the government for rehabilitation. But what we saw, which is quite unfortunate, which I would like to share with some people who might not be aware, after DNLA surrendered a couple of months ago, they have been designated their camps in Dima Hasao district. One of the camp is in Maibang town, which is near to Haflong town. Maibang, which was the old capital of the Dimasa kingdom. So in Maibang, the DNLA have this camp right now where the surrendered militants are staying. Recently, apparently, some cadres wanted to, escape from the camp, which angered some of their mates, and then they kidnapped them back and tortured them, and unfortunately 3 young men died and many were injured. Fortunately, because some members of the missing people complained, lodged a FIR with the police. So the police went there and intervened and then found some people who were already held hostage. They might have also lost their life if the police had not acted at the time. So what you see is, again, this is something which had already happened. This is not something new. We saw something like this happen already between DHT-J and DHT-N back then, 10 years ago. So this is kind of like, going round the circle again and again. So, which in turn is affecting politics in the sense, because these militants then have enough money to contest elections, and because you are using so much money to contest elections, they also have this might and muscle power behind them. So present day politics in Dima Hasao particularly has completely changed from how it was 20 years back, 25 years back, where there's a lot of muscle power being used and there's a lot of money power being used, and which in turn is leading to a lot of unabated corruption. I'm sure corruption is not particular to 6th schedule. I know everyone is facing the same problem everywhere, but it also leads to stifling of democracy. So governance, the biggest issue of governance in 6th schedule areas, and especially in Dima Hasao right now, is and I'm sure it's the same thing in Karbi Anglong also, because in Karbi Anglong right now there's no opposition. Out of the 26 constituencies, I think no one has won from the opposition. So the ruling party, which is of course the BJP party, has an absolute majority, which is here in Dima Hasao also. Out of the 28 constituencies, the BJP have now 27 members. I am part of the opposition. I'm a lone opposition out of 28. So every day there's a, by the way, everyone did not contest from BJP and won from a BJP ticket, but then everyone defected. In fact, my party member also defected to BJP. By the way, I come from the Indian National Congress Party. So right now in 6th schedule,
Interrupt, Daniel.
what I would say,
sorry to interrupt, but maybe you will have to wind up in a minute or so.
Yes. So basically, the biggest challenge, I think, right now what we are facing in 6th schedule areas, as from a politician point of view, from elected member point of view, is there's a need of more opposition to come up, because opposition does not exist basically, and there's a huge need for young people to come up in the interest of the 6th schedule, and not just, okay, the council is there are funds available, you get into the council and use the funds for your own liking. So this this discussion has to start, and I just have hope in the young people to come up and look at governance of sixth schedule from the sixth schedule point of view, which has been lacking for a very long time right now. So maybe I'd like to end it here for now, and then maybe later on we can elaborate on some other points. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Daniel, for highlighting on many key issues, particularly for bringing out the complexity of ethnic composition, the challenges it brings about, and also on speaking in such detail about militarization. Now, I would like to request Saito Basumatary to deliver his speech. Saito will be speaking on poor governance due to lack of socio-political consciousness. He is a rights-based activist who especially works on right to food in Assam. Presently, he is working with United People's Party, Liberal. He is also an advocate at Kokrajhar District Court. Saito?
Hello. Hello.
Yes. Yes, we can hear you.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Even I'm not visible. I have not seen anyone. I am very poor in technology. Hello. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you and we can see you.
Okay. No, I think most issues are covered by Junmani Basumatary. I may not have to speak too long maybe. But I will cover just some specific issues regarding the governance issue at BCDC level and TCLC level. BCDC is a Village Council Development Committee, and TCLC is a Territorial Council Level Coordination Committee. Here at the BCDC level, what happens? How the beneficiaries are selected and not selected. Like at the Gram Sabha, organize or held some of the places where politically active leaders are quite socially and politically conscious, and those leaders who are not conscious at all, they are least border to organize Gram Sabha. And during Gram Sabha, what happened is some government department officials, some block level officials, they come and attend. But they are not aware of who about this government rules and guidelines, which beneficiaries, which poor people need to be selected. And the political leaders who are chairman or the members, they may not be, they're also not interested. It's because there is no financial incentive, some kind of thing for organizing Gram Sabha. That's why the implementation at the Gram Sabha is very poor. And the department, the government officials itself are very less insensitive for implementation of any scheme. So unless government department are officials are and the political leaders are conscious for development or to improve the governance will never improve in any areas in BTAD. So to improve governance, people has to be aware of, and government officials must be conscious. Political leaders must also be conscious. Then only things will take place. And the BCDC label or the TLCC label, all those has to be need to be strengthened legally, and institutional, or those institution has to be strengthened, and there must be election in the NBCDC or TCLCC level, not politically elected or selected by anyone. And lastly, direct funding from the central government. What happened in what's happening now under the Finance Commission? The money comes direct to the EM or GM, and through the department, not to the BCDC chairman or the BCDC level, because the problem is that BCD is not elected body. And at the Panchayat level, like in Assam, in some parts, the Finance Commission scheme, all the money directly goes to the Panchayat, but not in the 6 scheduled areas, not at the BCDC level or the TCLC level. And at the Gram Sabha, there is no proper discussion about the development, what needs to take place, who needs to be selected. That is the problems going on. So what I would say that unless there is socio-political consciousness among the government department officials and political leaders, governance will never take place. Good governance will never take place. And there will be, unless this system improves, there will be total dissatisfaction amongst the people. And the other point, what I would like to comment about the ethnicity. In BTAD, in BTR, what is happening is like what I see, situation in BTR is not permanent unless some formula is worked out. Because at any time, at any moment, there may be some conflict between the communities. The problem is that there is a political imbalance. The tribals, they say, we are the dominant people. We are the original people. And they are other opposing non-tribal groups who call themselves as Oboro, that is non-Bodos. They say, they dispute that Bodos is minority, tribals are minority, we are higher in population. How you can govern us? There are such points being raised. So political imbalance is very much in existence. That's why I say that situation may be normal now, unless those things are looked out, there might be some problems in near future also. That's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Saito, uh, for bringing out some of the challenges that people are facing as a result of inadequacies in the governance. Now, I would like to request Rakhee Naiding, Assistant Professor at the Department of Political Science, Bikali College, to deliver her speech. Rakhee's research revolves around issues of Northeast, including recently complexities of assertion of self-determination by numerically small numbers, like the Dimasas. Over to you, Rakhee.
Yeah, am I audible?
You are audible.
Okay, all right. Yeah, thank you, Amrita. First of all, I'm grateful to the National Alliance for People's Movement India for having me on this panel discussion today. I'm thankful to Meera. Meera called me up, day before yesterday, and then, or was that the day before, and she asked me to be part of this panel. And I, of course, was delighted. It was on very short notice, but I was delighted to be part of this panel in the sense that, for all three councils of Assam to come together and talk about the several issues that of governance or ethnicity and several other issues that the districts are grappling with, I think discussion was, long due. So I think, NAPM, I'm grateful to NAPM, I'm grateful to Meera, I'm very happy that, all of you could get all of us together today on this platform. I guess the speakers before me, they have highlighted a lot of issues regarding the governance and then the resources, resource rights, and of ethnicity, the complexities of different ethnic communities, and the dynamic between all these different communities in the three districts. I think that has very well been highlighted. I do not really have much to add, but overall, I just like to put forward a few concerns of mine regarding sixth schedule and autonomy. And I'll speak in particular reference to North Cachar Hills Autonomous Council, because I think that is what I think I have. It's first-hand experience in the sense that I come from Half-Long, so I think that I think I could, perhaps I'll be better able to speak on North Cachar Hills Autonomous Council rather than BTC or Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council. First and foremost, the praxis of autonomy in six schedule areas in Assam, with particular reference to North Cachar Hills Autonomous Council, what I personally feel is that things haven't really changed since colonial times. I mean, if you look at the beginnings of the sixth schedule, if you look at how this entire North Kachar, how this autonomous councils came into being. So we start, if you look before independence. So basically, these areas, different parts of Northeast, present-day Northeast India. So there were all these different hill tracts. There are different hill tracts. Present-day BTC was not part of it. But then, if you look at the Mikir Hills, erstwhile Mikir Hills or the North Cachar Hills. So these were all these hill areas, which were basically clubbed as backward tracts during the British regime. And then backward tracts, which were inhabited by savage people, which were quote unquote savage people, which were inhabited by people with primitive civilization. That was the area, that was the idea during colonial regime. And then after that, this backward tracks are turned into administratively, they are turned into the excluded areas and then the partially excluded areas, whereby what happens is that these districts are administered directly by the governor. Like if you look at the excluded areas, which are present day Karbi, Anglong, and the present day Dima, Hasao, these were directly administered by the governor, and the elected ministry that was in place in Assam or Bengal, they had nothing to do with the administration in these areas. These were directly administered by the governor, and the local populace of these districts had no say whatever in the administration of these areas. And then this happened, and during this time colonial exploitation was going on in these areas. And then at the very eve of independence, what happens is that there is a minuscule middle class, not middle class, I mean this minuscule educated sections which come up from the different tribes which are inhabiting these areas, and they come forward. And at the eve of independence, we all know that the government to be sitting in the Constituent Assembly. So we are giving this new hope, and there is this new energy running in the country that the British colonial regime is now at an end, and now we get to rule ourselves, we get to govern ourselves, right? Because that was the ideology that even the Indian national movement had, that of self-determination. And then now you have different groups in the northeast region of India demanding separate sovereign nation, demanding autonomous councils, several demands of the fledgling Indian state. And then basically on the basis of the idea of self-determination and on the basis of the idea of self-governance. So with this, and definitely there was this idea of the politics of difference. A sort of difference was also asserted. If you look at the Naga, the demands by the NNC at that point of time, the Naga Nationalist Council. So the same trend was, there was a sort of a trend in the northeast part of in northeastern India, where different tribes are making such assertions. And so when these tribes are making such assertions, what happens is that several of the leaders in the Constituent Assembly, particularly several leaders from Assam itself, so they were not very supportive of that kind of claims coming from the hill tribes of the northeastern part of India. They were not very supportive, and the idea was that this is going to lead to some kind of that this could threaten the such kinds of demands if entertained of the hill tribes of the northeast. This could lead to us disintegration of this fledgling Indian state. So a certain compromise was made, and the compromise were the sixth schedule provision. The compromise was the sixth schedule provision, and the compromise was the autonomous councils. And yet, I think, you have several tribes demanding something like a sovereign state. If you look at the Naga National Council, if you look at several other, groups demanding a hill state of their own. Because I think, Holiram Terang sir, he also pointed out at the beginning about the idea of the hill state. So these demands, in fact, go back to the eve of independence. But then, like I said, a compromise was made, and then the Indian state, the framers of the Constitution of India, they gave the solution to this kinds of demands, and to sort of appease the different groups, the different tribal groups, was the provision of sixth schedule. But then again, with the idea that okay, this would be self-governing autonomous institutions, where the idea of the tribals who are asserting a politics of difference, all of that would be accommodated. Their rights would be given, they would be given justice, and they would be given rights to administer themselves, on the basis of their own genius, on the basis of their own cultures. That was what was going on. But I think very clearly, and at the very beginning itself, it was so clear to the several leaders of the different autonomous councils all over the Northeast that the sixth schedule, the autonomous councils were not at all equipped to assuage the aspirations of the tribal people therein. And there was a lot of control, political control that was coming from the from the Assam state, as well as from the center at that point of time. So I think, and hence you see that the different kinds of movements begin. The speakers earlier to me, they have already highlighted this, and the basis of this, the demands. And if you just look at it, the terminology of the different demands that have been made over this past 60, 70 years since the inception of autonomous councils, the demand is for greater autonomy, more autonomy. It doesn't make any sense, in the sense that autonomy is autonomy by itself. Well, it is quite interesting when you say something like greater autonomy. So because if you look at the definition of autonomy, it should be, if you already have autonomy, there shouldn't be any more demands to be made. You are ruling yourself of your own free will. You are, the masters of your own political destiny. That is implied already in autonomy. So what is this demand for greater autonomy or more autonomy and all that? That is basically because, like the earlier speakers have already pointed out, there is clearly a great contradiction in the praxis of autonomy when it comes to sixth schedule. So like if you look at what the other speakers have pointed out, the problems in terms of finance, and the problems in terms of policy making, the problems in terms of no control over land, no control over resources. So if you look at all these trends, like I have already pointed out, I think, even in my earlier presentations, whenever I have spoken on autonomy, is that there is no autonomy. Autonomous councils is just a misnomer. Basically, it's just a misnomer, because there is no autonomy in the praxis of the autonomous councils. There is so much control. There is so much control from the state government, from Dispur. The kind of control is the kind of control that is in operation, or the kind of control, or the kind of dependency, the relation of dependency that is in place when it comes to the relation between the autonomous councils and then the center, or autonomous councils and the state government. It's so great that calling the autonomous councils in any way autonomous, it's just it's a misnomer. That is what I'd like to add. And there are several issues, I think. I'd like to also highlight the issue of the kind of ethnicization of the councils that is going on. I think we can, of course, I think later in for the second round, I think we can further the discussion on governance and resources. But I just wanted to talk about the ethnicization of the autonomous councils, because in its essence, I think at the very beginning, they were supposed to represent tribal rights. But today, as we see, most of the autonomous councils, they have turned into this ethnic councils, representing the interest of the majority tribes. So that is a kind of a conundrum that I think, people within the, autonomous councils, the people within the autonomous councils should discuss and talk about. Because, what has happened is if you are like, look at the case of North Cachar Hills Autonomous Council, look at the case of Dima Hasao. Like the earlier speaker had pointed out, what has happened is that because of the idea that there is a certain group or a certain tribe which is dominant, the other smaller tribes, they feel that it is their rights are not represented, and their autonomy is again being threatened by the assertion of the other tribe, by the assertion for autonomy of the other tribe. So I think these are the kind of contradictions that we have to people within the autonomous councils, within the sixth schedule area should really discuss. Why it is important, I feel that, because if we are to look at the larger issues of the lack of autonomy of sixth schedule, of the lack of autonomy of autonomous councils, if we have to confront the establishment, we have to confront the larger the hegemonic forces in the state, whether it be the state government, the local state government, whether it be the center. So until and unless there is a sort of alliance of all these tribal communities which is happening at the local level, until and unless all these communities come together, it is not even possible for just one singular tribe to be confronting or to be challenging the the hegemonic forces at the state level or at the center level. And that's not just for one particular district. I think such alliances have to be built among and between other autonomous councils also. And then if you look at that, we have to confront this idea about the internal contradictions of the different communities there. And I think, yeah, this is something I wanted to put out there. I think we can have further discussion on it. I think I'll stop here for now. There are a lot of other issues I think we can discuss, but then if I speak to, I think if a speaker speaks for too long, it just becomes a little monotonous, and I was hoping for a more of a discussion actually. So I think I'll stop here, and then we can discuss further during the second round. Yeah, thank you.
So, thank you, Rakhee, for this very detailed analysis. I was thinking we had one more presenter, Bandita, but I think she couldn't come today. Her son is unwell. We do have a few questions in the chat box. But before that, I was thinking if we could speak or discuss a little bit on the ecological rights and challenges that the autonomous councils are facing, because ecological rights are very important for one's identity. And a lot of politics in the autonomous council revolves around issues of land, forest, agriculture. So any one of the speakers could, if interested, could speak on it a bit.
Holiram sir, I think you should.
No. I don't think that I should be the right person to speak on that. But my wish, I can say, that I do have a wish that actually these people who are tribals that we call, whether in the hills or the plains, they do have a love for their own land. It's a love. And I don't know about other people, but the Karbis whose whose line of faith is called animism. See, we do worship land. We do worship trees. We do worship even animals. We sacrifice animals, but at the same time, we also do have respect on animals. And So from that point of view, what we can say is that, we want the tribals, the indigenous people to have total rights, full rights over the land. Land will naturally will include the forest and all the animals and all that. So, and we know from all the places that actually, if the ecology is to be protected, then the tribals have to be protected, and they should be given the right to protect it. They should be given total right. Now, I was saying in my first thing also that these mines and minerals, especially, as is what is happening in central India, I think now the total attention of those what you call mining giants, they are now focusing towards Northeast India, especially now in Dima, Hasao and Karbi. That's why I mentioned about plutonium. That's why I'm mentioned about, sorry, not plutonium, platinum. Platinum, uranium, coal, and sand, and all that are there, of course. Then we have all kinds of different kinds of trees and all that. So, but the autonomous councils do not have much right on that. I won't say they don't have any right at all, because the autonomous council do have some right on land, but only over the land. But below the surface of the land, the council does not have any right. So what I feel is that the council should be given that right. Not necessarily council. What I want is that tribal people, in their own wisdom, they should be given the right to administer the areas, including the mines and minerals. So that's on ecology. I would like to say something else on other things. Should I?
Yes, sir. Yes.
No. Actually, I listened to all the speakers, and I think Bandita could not join us, but still then, whatever was spoken was really fruitful. And yeah, I tend to agree with Rakhee, where that she was saying that the autonomous council is a misnomer. Yeah, I tend to agree to that. And if you look at the whole thing, then I think I won't say about the international politics and all that, but at least at the national level, I think I'm much concerned about the workings of the deep state. I think some of us know about the workings of the deep state. Deep state is in war everywhere, and now much more in the hill areas, much more in the scheduled areas. And the second thing, I think in the chat, I think Meera was asking about how could the BJP have so much sway in the scheduled areas. Now, one thing that is that, of course, naturally, if the parties who are governing, both in the center, state, and especially in the council areas, are not capable to meet the demands or aspirations of the people there, then some other party will come in. Some other party will come in, and the BJP, what I feel is that they have been able to enter first by saying that they are in favor of creating small states. That was the first agenda that they had when they came into the national picture specifically. Then after that, slowly and steadily, they have been trying to rope in the indigenous, you can say indigenous, I won't say indigenous religion, but in the name of patronizing indigenous faith, they have been coming closer with the people who are enemies or who have indigenous faith. And the RSS specifically, they have been working even in the hill areas, both Dima, Hasao and Karbi Anglong, for a very, very long time, since many, many decades. So it was not difficult for BJP to make a proper entry into the hill areas. One. And I would like to say that, but this is a very dangerous process in the sense that making the tribal faith, you can say, I was a tribal religion, then trying to make them as a Hindu and all that. And very recently, there was a meeting in Difu wherein this Vivekananda International something, I think, which is regionally based in Guwahati. They had a meeting in Karbi Anglong Difu, and they tried to rope in the local Karbi cultural and literary bodies and all. So they are making this effort. And Mira was, I think, asking that, can this sway of the BJP be reversed in the next decade or so? Well, in the NDC areas, in the Autonomous Council areas. Well, what I can say is that there are people who are trying to reverse the trend. They are politically, socially, they're trying, even intellectually to some extent. But this all depends also on the national level, not necessarily on the state level itself. And if there is an effort made at the national level, then naturally it will be easier for the people in the hill areas, shield areas, to reverse the sway of the BJP. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Any other speaker would want to address these questions? The issue of ecology, or even Mira's question on Hindutva and BJP.
Yeah, I would like to.
Yes, brother, go on.
Yeah. I'd just like to add on, because to what Holiram sir just said, because many might not be aware of what is right now happening in Dima Hasao also. So, for example, like we know that forest, the council does have some rights and control over the land and its resources. But right now, also, so obviously, many of these are not. The last couple been getting the council, so I've been getting a lot of very worried. Many Gauburas of villages actually do not to give their permission, but they are also asked by executive members and of the council to give their permission to the companies which are, looking for oil and gas. And everyone knows what is happening with the coal and the reverse stone mining in Dima Hasao. Actually, it's especially reverse stone mining is when you go to the Jatinga area, when you go to Harangajao, it's really in a very bad state right now. And here's the sad thing, and it's somehow, see, it's not a new thing. It has happened in the past, but at the pace at which it has happened, especially reverse stone mining in the last couple of years, under the BJP rule, it's unprecedented. And here I would connect to also the question which was asked by Mira and which Holiram sir also kind of like answered. But for me, more than the RSS angle, more than the social engineering angle, which of course is also very, very strong and powerful, there's this huge financial angle which is basically driving BJP's politics in Dima Hasao and in Karbi Anglong. The amount of resources, financial resources they have currently right now is unimaginable when you compare it to just maybe even 10 years ago. And a huge chunk of it comes from, of course, from the reverse stone mining and the coal mining, where existing council members are actually the contractors, running the show. And when you see that local youths are employed in all this work, and then also, looking at the rise in poverty. I mean, poverty has always been an issue here, but lack of unemployment and everything. So the young people are so desperate, and whatever little you get, you don't want to let go of that. So just because of the funding that you get from all this, especially I'm sure it happens elsewhere also, but in Dima, Hasao and Karbi Anglong is so strong right now that it will be very difficult to to reverse what BJP is doing right now, as in terms of its stronghold in these two councils. Yes, I'd like to end here.
Yeah, I agree to what what both Holiram sir has said and what brother Daniel has said. First of all, when it comes to ecology, it is, I think, a no-brainer. Almost all our indigenous communities, our tribal communities especially, we are dependent on the ecology for our livelihood and our identity itself. I mean, if you look at all our practices, our traditional practices, we are directly associated with all the resources that we are getting from all the forest resources and other resources. We are like directly dependent on these forest resources to in fact carry out all our traditional practices, all our rituals, life ritual, birth rituals, death rituals, everything. So in that sense, the ecology getting the degradation, the ecological degradation, that is not just going to affect our livelihood, it is also affecting our identities, of course. But at the same time, like brother Daniel has pointed out, the communities in the 6 scheduled areas are in such a hapless position at this point of time. If you look at the recently, the Kopili hydroelectric project and what is going on there, if you look at the, first of all, the agreement has been signed, and then I think now the hydroelectric project is like, it's running and it's functioning and everything. But then what has happened to the local communities out there? They were promised, money, they were promised jobs, and on account of that, the people, not because they didn't have any other, the people there, they didn't have even a they didn't have any other option. Basically, they were just told that, okay, this is what is going to happen, the government has put this scheme in place, and now all you have to do is you have to sign your rights over, and in return you'll be given either some monetary, you will be compensated through monetary means, or you'll be compensated in the form of rehabilitation through jobs and such employment opportunities. But the fact of the matter remains that if you go down there, you see that even that has not been given. This simple, the compensation has not been given to the people, and neither the jobs that were promised. So none of that has happened. So that is one, ecologically. I mean, it's on one hand, there is a promise that industrialization and all this kind of developmental projects will come in, that is going to bring us closer to this achieved goal of economic development, social development and all. But then in many ways, what it is doing is, it is, again, there is they are extracting the resources, but we have no share in the capital that is being generated, in the that is being generated from this natural resources. It's complete exploitation, it is colonialism. I mean, there is no two ways about it. And then internal colonialism, there is no two ways about it. And then the second thing about Hindutva ideology, I see a lot of that popping up in the chat box. I agree again here with brother Daniel. It is not about Hindutva. It's not about just a political party. It is not about, I mean, we have been pushed into such kind of a dependency the autonomous councils, especially districts like Dima, Hasao, Karbi, Anglong, Dima, Hasao in particular. If you look at Dima, Hasao, in fact, if you look at Chaube's book on the hill politics, so even there, and even before that, you just assess the history of North Kachar Hills. Even in fact, amongst the different excluded and partially excluded areas, the Dima Hasao district, even at that point of time, was technologically and educationally, it was one of the most backward districts, and that is the reality even today. I mean, I keep telling this to my friends. I mean, recently I am an assistant professor in a college, so I understand. And people keep asking me, like, why don't you come down home? Why don't you work, teach back home? Why you have to go so far away from home? And I tell them, where are the colleges in my district? Like, educationally, this is just one example, and this is the case in not just in terms of education, in terms of healthcare, employment, everything. On one hand, it is said to us that, yeah, you have your sixth schedule, you have autonomy, you have all these rights, you can develop yourself, but then there is no real autonomy. And hence the situation is as such that in 1950 we had one government college, and then today we have one government college and one provincialized college. This is the reality of our district. This is the reality of a district. There is no, I mean, there is no scope for people to get into education. Without education, where are the employment opportunities? Where are the skilled youths? So we are put in that kind of a position where we have nothing else to do besides fall into a sort of a patron-client relationship. And then whatever party comes to power at the center, whatever party comes to power at the state level, people cannot do anything else but to just fall in line and vote for the party in power. So it's not about, like, Hindutva and all the tribals now voting for Hindutva party, so all of them have become saffron. That is a very wrong assessment. And I think looking at this kind of this is basically it's a trap. It's a trap where on one hand we have no scope for autonomous politics, and because of several reasons, right? Democracy, at the end of the day, it's just a tyranny of numbers, as we say. And then, so being minuscule in our numbers, and then further fragmentation within, we are put into a position where we don't have any other option but to vote for the party in power. So this idea that all of us are now turning saffron, and there is definitely a wave. There is definitely a wave in the sense that, yeah, but that has so much to do with overall Hindutva propaganda also. And then we don't have a sort of strong ideology or strong movement on the ground right now which could counter the effects or the impact of Hindutva, or for that matter any other hegemonic ideology. So I think that is what I think that is what I'd like to point out. Thank you.
Terang, sir, there is a question for you from Khanin Boro.
What's that? I haven't seen.
Is council a drop of the ocean in front of the ruling National Party? Is it a consolation prize to overrule the people from periphery? Because the leaders from the council are emerging less experienced in compared to the mainstream, and therefore couldn't meet the expectations of their voters and ends to social stratification. Is council merely an ideal but not in practice? What's your take on this, to Terang, sir?
Yeah, I didn't see this Terang, sir. I didn't notice it, Terang, sir. Anyway, I thought it was to everyone. Anyway, is council a drop of the ocean in front of the National Party? Is it like a consolation prize to overrule the people from periphery? Because leaders from the councils are emerging less experienced in comparison to mainstream, and therefore couldn't meet the expectations of their voters, and ends to social service in council merely an ideal but not in practice. I don't think so. It is not a drop in the ocean. I think it's a quite a big question, and I think both Daniel and Rakhee, they have pointed out the things properly. That in the name of giving autonomy, shall we say it is kind of like ghetto? What do you call it?
Ghettoization.
Ghettoization. Yeah, I couldn't pronounce it properly. This is one thing, and the other is I tend to, I just remembered Ambedkar comparing the sexual areas to that American, I think reservation they call it. They call it. So keep them in the reserve and don't let them out. I mean, don't let them, intermingle with the other people and all that this thing. And there is the other sense with with the mainstream people. Those people who are in the non-chilled areas, they tend to also believe that the council has got so lots of autonomy and they have got so much power and all that, and they are misusing the whole thing. But I think Daniel has responded to that properly. You make the people so poor that whatever that is given to you, be it a 10 rupee or a 10,000 rupees, you grab it. Otherwise, you won't survive. So I think we have to re-look at the whole thing. We have to re-look at the whole thing, not necessarily on the workings of the skill itself, but also about the working of the Indian democracy, Indian federal system, Indian economic system, Indian political system. I think broadly, I would say only this much.
There is a question on self-governance by K.K. Chatradhara. Is self-governance able to resolve all the troubles of the Northeast, or the present form of self-governance in an autonomous council is really a self-governance? Anyone who
I think there has been already, the question has been already taken up.
Yes. There's a question on globalization and industrialization. Yes, Daniel, please continue.
No, I'm fine. I was just about to say that I think Rakhee has already said that autonomy is a misnomer. So I think that's it at the end of the day. Yeah, so we can continue.
There's a question on globalization and industrialization and the future of EDC.
Question of industrialization and
globalization. Future of EDC in the context of globalization and industrialization. Saito, will you?
Yeah.
Sir, please.
I think we are getting all the negative impacts. We are getting all the negative impacts, not much of the positive impacts. There's a future of the autonomous councils. I think all these questions that have come up in the chat box have been answered.
Yes.
I think we can wind up.
Wind up for the day. There was a request for Daniel to perform.
Amrita, there are one or two more questions. Should I just read them out briefly?
Yeah, sure.
There's this question, just a curiosity to know from the speakers who spoke on governance in BTC. Since the signing of the latest Bodo Accord and with the new government in power now, how has the governance been on the ground, and what do people on the ground conceive of the new political changes and for their better life? This is from Biswa. So either Saito or Junmani maybe can probably address.
Yes, I can respond to that question. Can you repeat the question? It's not visible on my screen. Yeah.
You want me to read the question out again, Junmani?
Yes.
No, so the speaker is basically trying to ask, since the signing of the latest Bodo Accord, what has been the situation on the ground and what political changes have happened actually in terms of betterment of the life of the people in the BTC area?
Okay. So after signing this BTC, which was in 2003, then this recent signing of BTR again, the nomenclature only changed because BTR is same, the title council is there on known as BTC. The other one was known as BTAD, but now it is like BTC. BTR. So the point is that in my speech, while I was giving that time, I have said that there is a twisting point. So this is the point here, that after giving this a BTR, after signing of BTR, so that is with one of the largest student organization. So who were like demanding for a separate state. So resolving with them a peace accord and name them as what to say, like it is like a BTR, and then transferring power to them, which is like one of the big game changer kind of a thing happened in Bodoland, especially in BTC. So there is now much changes, but there is a two group of people we can see now. One group is happy with the BTR and another group is not happy with the BTR in the ground level, if I say, and which is now I don't know whether it is politically, it is legally it is true or not, but I have come to know that the power which is given 40 subject over the 40 subject, which is now reduced to till 16. So gradually what we can see, I think the if these things are going will go on in near future, then there will be some problem, maybe to run politically, and the earlier BTC was ruled by the political party named as a BPF. So in the Bodo history, as a political party, that is a regional political party, and which ruled the Bodo people for the longest period. And the same BPF as a political party, they had a very strong hold in the Assam, in the state government politics also. Like once upon it, I mean, in some of the year of 2011 to 13, 14 maybe, during the time they have 11 MLAs from the region. I mean, yeah, from the BPF political party. So somewhere like Congress party was ruling in state of Assam, they were like alliance with the BPF, which is a regional political party of the BTC. So which was like one impactful era that BPF had while they are ruling. But now with the BTR, now new political party which is assigned with, and they are in BTR, they are aligned with the BJP. So which is like what to say, if it goes on like we can see the number of seat also BJP are having than UPPL, because BJP are having maybe 16 seats and more than UPPL. So next, what going to happen? This is like, it will be very interesting to see what will be the next turn of the BTR politics. So somewhere like there is a like a fear among the people. It may be going to same with like Karbi Anglong or Dima Hasao or North Cachar Hill district kind of a thing. So the people of the BTR need to be more aware politically, the way they have been like conscious regarding their power. Yeah, exactly. I have to say here, as a district council, the way like BTC has been like developed in last couple of years, so which is not possible in terms of other district council, maybe in Assam, which is comparative ground reality. If we see, so we can see that again we have one more problem here in the BTC, which is like a tribal balance block, which is one during the British regime, that is signed in 1887. So which is not in effect in BTR now at present. So these things are need to be relooked at, because one of the earlier speakers said the land is like a life for the tribal people. Of course, this is the same thing in case of Bodo Bodo people also, we love our land.
Yes.
Unmute yourself, Mr. Saito.
Slight objection with what Junmani has said, reducing the power of BTR. No? It's not reducing of power. Actually, what it was one, there was one notification regarding some powers given to the deputy commissioner in BTR. That is only for supervision and monitoring of schemes. If we have to lose power, then we'll have to lose legislative power. But legislative power we have not lose. We have not lose anything. But just to reduce corruption in BTR through the supervision of deputy commissioner, that's power was given. Just a supervisory power. And regarding this governance in BTC, there, like during this COVID, during soon after the accord, signing of the accord, the election was announced. And soon after election being announced, there was again COVID lockdown. And we could not hold any election. So for the 8 to 9 months, there was election campaign in BTR. Like soon after accord, nothing was happened. Only was election campaign and lockdown, and after again by-election. That's how the time has gone, and that's why most of the work has not been grounded. Now the UPPL, the United People's Party, Liberal, that is busy with engaging, streamlining the party workers in order to challenge other national parties in the next election. There are a lot of effort going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Saito. I was thinking, can we give a last few minutes to the question of women the agency challenges in the autonomous councils, because that issue we completely left undiscussed. So maybe a couple of minutes from each or any one of you. Rakhee?
I'm sorry, on
women.
Okay. Yes. We do. I think this aspect is often left out. I suppose when we're talking about autonomous councils. I think it's also left out because I think there are so many issues with the how the autonomous councils are functioning. We communities have not been able to, as I see it in the question. I was just going through the chat box as you were Amrita, as you pointed out regarding the issue of women, if autonomous councils are really self-governance, that kind of way. I was just going through that, and yeah, that is in fact I mean, we have already discussed this, but I just wanted to point it out once again that although by the name, it goes by the name of this institution, this councils, they go by the name of autonomous councils, but we have had very little in shaping the politics of this autonomous council. So that's a contradiction in itself. It's a huge contradiction, and then hence that's why I feel that if you look at women's role in the debates around autonomy, in the with respect to autonomous councils and sixth schedule provision, you would hardly find any discussion regarding women's rights in when we talk about sixth schedule. But then that is not the case. That is not the case if you look at how tribal societies function, right? Women and men, they have their own roles, and then there is clearly division of work between the genders that is there. And then of course, there might be a problem when you talk about, clear division in gender roles and all that, but I'm not exactly talking about that. But yet, if you look at how tribal societies operate, you see that men and women are definitely sharing the burden together, with respect to how the tribal communities run and function. When you look at their own, customary practices and, their own, social governance and everything. But then that has not been that has this set of the role that women play in tribal communities, that has not been translated in the autonomous council, I mean in the sixth schedule institutions. That has not happened. So hence we see that there is no discussion even about the representation of women in autonomous councils, or the lack thereof of, women's representation in autonomous councils. There are hardly such, discussions, especially I think when it comes to Karbi Anglong or, Dima Hasao and all. I have not come across such discussions where we are talking about, because that is not the case in, when you look at Panchayati Raj institutions, we have reservations in place for women, but nobody is talking about that when it comes to autonomous councils. That is first problem that I see. And I think that debate, that discussion has to be taken up by, members of autonomous councils, as well as the, people in the six schedule areas, men, women, other genders, all alike. We have to talk about the representation of different genders within, councils. So that is there. And yeah, first thing that of the issue of representation, I think that is something that kind of debate has not even begun. So I think we could definitely start with that. I think, yeah, I'll stop here. Maybe we can take comments from other speakers also, and then we can further this discussion.
Yeah. The other day I was listening to the session. I forgot the name of the speaker. I think she's from Tripura, and she was talking about how when we talk about tribal community, a lot of the liberals and progressives like to talk about how, compared to other communities, in tribal communities, women are given so much respect and they have a lot of say in decision making. But like she also agrees that that is also there, and I also kind of like agree. Like closely, I have seen, for example, in Dimasa community, women do have, in certain aspects, a role where they are given freedom and kind of equal space. But when it comes to decision making, as in terms of the socio-political space in tribal community, I agree with Rakhee when she says that, councils, autonomous councils and members have to really look into how we can really empower women and give them space first, in the decision making. But then I think we have to go deeper, and in the village level, in the tribal communities, what I've seen up close is, for example, in grassroots politics, whenever I go to a village to meet and discuss about politics, so it's just men all the time. We are just sitting with men. And suppose I go to a Gaubura's house, or not just a Gaubura, Gaubura is the village head, so understandably. But then till date, I have not met a single village head women. I don't know. I'm just making that word up. But so I've not seen a woman lead a village. I've not seen that. And whenever we sit down to discuss about anything related to policies or politics or developmental schemes which are coming to the village, it's all men huddled up together. The women are in the house. They are in the house, but then mostly they're serving, they're serving us. They're in the kitchen, serving us tea. And this happens in tribal communities, and this is the reality. This is what we need to speak about. And what we basically need to do right now is question that. And I feel only the young generation can do that. The young generation has to address that, because I don't see that happening just on its own. That's not going to happen. It would have happened long ago if that was the case. So the young people just have to get in, and they have to question this. They have to question in their own villages, in their own setups. So there's no other way. And once we let more people come in and women sit down and discuss, and then we can talk about bigger things like representation or in village. VDC has been, I think, at least been formulated, but here still there's no process of how we are going to frame VDC, looking at all the different communities that live in Dima. Okay, but on the, if anyone else could come in.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. So what you're suggesting is that, before talking about a political representation, we also have to look at the society. Of course, I mean, I'm not disagreeing that there are patriarchal tendencies within tribal communities. I'm not saying that. And in fact, if you look at how several of these communities function today, there is an impact of the others. I wanted to cite a certain example, because with respect to a community like that of the Dimasas, we I don't know if most of us here are aware. So like we have two lineages, right? We have the patrilineal clan, and then we have the matrilineal clan. So we are following the double lineage system. That is, I think, in many ways it goes to show that there is a kind of parity between the man, yeah, between the there is a parity between the the lineage from the mother's side as well as the father's side, which is huge. I mean, if you compare it to something like Brahmanical patriarchy, I think, yeah, I mean, you just can't, there is no comparison at all, right? So but then again, there is a, because of the if you look at the modern state, the modern liberal state is also highly patriarchal in nature. And then on you have the modern state of patriarchal, the liberal state of patriarchal structure that we have to deal with. And then you have also the other cultures around you, most of these monotheistic religions with their highly patriarchal systems in place. So the impact, the influence of these cultures is evident. And then, of course, in popular culture, the impact of popular culture is also evident in the practices of the tribal communities. And at the same time, I'm also saying that there are patriarchal tendencies among these communities. So now the issue is, how do we? But then the kind of predicament that I find our communities today in, when it comes to tribal communities, is that we are we've been the patriarchal tendencies are basically, I think, a lot of these practices have come from the liberal state as well as the cultures around us. Like the example that I was giving of how when it comes to Dimasa community, we have two lineage, we follow the bilineal system, where we have a patri clan as well as a matri clan. But then later what happens, so that's why if you look at some of the earliest, if you just go flip the history pages and you look at like some of the names of the earliest Dimasa kings, you just have their first name. Nobody is talking about their whether the father's clan or the mother's clan follows the first name, right? So you have only the first names. And then later what happens, we start going to schools, and then of course the schools, there the surnames that you are supposed to give in the school systems, you are asked to give your father's clan name, so you give your Petri clan. And then, after that we start embodying this, the identity that we take from the side of the father. So I think this is just one example that I'm giving. There are several such instances where we have actually internalized all these patriarchal tendencies from the liberal states and its practices, from the other alien cultures. And I'm not saying that there are no patriarchal tendencies within the tribal communities. It's just that sometimes when we say that, this sentence, right, where we are saying that, oh, no, it's not just the mainland, mainland communities or the castes, it's also tribal communities. We have our own patriarchal tendencies. Yes, we do. But at the same time, the solution for it, right? So brother Daniel was pointing out the how that kind of discussion has to begin at the social level. Definitely from families, such discussions have to begin, where we are discussing about decision making role of the women, the tribal woman, and or the other genders, that has to be discussed. But all the same, we are not talking enough about the lack of education among all these communities, which I pointed out earlier also. We have such debates about gender parity, gender equity, and so many. These are these are concepts coming from a very societies which have advanced, highly advanced, technologically, and in terms of progressive ideology, right? So I think trying to impose those standards on communities who are yet to see higher education, I think that is a kind of a problem. Today the thing is that we are all aspiring, the standard for all of us, the gold standard is Western cultures, where there is gender parity, where we are talking about LGBT rights and all that. But then when you come home, you see that we have not even begun scratching the surface of such debates, right? So then if you what happens is that you are trying to judge these communities from a position of a culture which is taken off long back on these debates, and these debates have advanced greatly, right? So I think I think I've lost my point, but all I'm trying to say is that such debates have to begin. We are only at a very fledgling state, when it comes to gender rights and equality and all the debates surrounding sex and gender today, right? We are many of these communities, we are at a fledgling state where and then even simple lower levels of formal education have been denied to us. So I think that's why expecting that kind of debate, that is some sort of a problem, I feel. And all the same, I think the debate has to begin. That's what I'm talking about. Yep. Sorry.
Thank you, Rakhee. So last 1 or 2 minutes from each speaker, if you have to say anything on the way forward for people's movement. Terang sir, one last comment.
Yeah, the first thing is that we should thank NAPM for bringing us together. It's a very pertinent issue, but I think so many other issues have come up that we may need some more sessions to discuss on all this. The only thing that I can say that as a last thing is that until unless we look into the workings of the Indian state, the Indian polity, then we won't be able to solve the situations in the sectoral areas. That's all.
Daniel?
Um, I would like to positive also more despair, negativity. Believe schedule, and when it comes to, like Rakhee rightly pointed out, like at the end of the day, we have been, because of slow progress when it comes to education. So this whole understanding of sixth schedule and our political rights has also come very slowly. But I'm pretty sure in the coming days, more young people in all. Did I lose my connection?
We can hear you. Mm.
Daniel, please continue. We can hear you.
Hello.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll quickly wrap it up. I also agree there needs to be more discussion, and there are more discussions, which is the positive thing. And in the coming days, I'm sure more young people from different fields, from the academics, from activism, from like young people joining politics, and everything will, lead to understanding ourselves better, especially the sixth schedule and the council. And as Mr. Holiram rightly pointed out, it has to, it's not independent of the central government and the workings of the deep state also, and which I completely agree. But at the same time, I'm quite hopeful that at least people are becoming more aware, and I'm sure discussions such as this will lead it further. Thank you.
Saito, Rakhee.
Yeah, I'll just say this, that, I think in comparison to 1950s, I think today perhaps we should be in a better position to to truly exercise autonomy, to truly exercise autonomy and shape our politics, with respect to governance, with respect to ethnicity. I mean, that is the problem, right? I seriously feel that this autonomous councils in many, for our people, have not really had deeper and real engagements with the idea of autonomy. That has not exactly happened. And I mean, whatever little has happened, that has also remained peripheral, and the larger community, I mean, they have just understood it from the point of difference, the politics of difference, and nobody is exactly talking about justice, social justice, distributed justice, that is supposed to be the the center of the understanding of autonomy. And hence we see this kinds of contradictions where we are talking about asking for greater autonomy, which doesn't really make sense, like I said earlier, regarding women's issues, regarding the ethnicization of these councils, all of that. I think a renewed debate on all these aspects of autonomy, on all these aspects of sixth schedule, on all these aspects of autonomous councils have to begin at this point of time. And like Holiram sir pointed out, like brother Daniel pointed out, like our other speakers also pointed out, I think it is high time that different groups within and without this sixth schedule areas have to come together to think how this can be made possible. And then the internal contradictions, the ethnicization, the extreme ethnicization that is happening, that has also to be countered. If that is done, I think we can really hope to make autonomous councils a sort of hallmark of autonomy and governance in the real sense of the term. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Rakhee. Saito and Junmani, if you can hear us.
Yes, I would like to conclude thanking all the NIPM team member, especially the Mira, and then I would not on my video because I'm scared of like losing my contagion, like connection. Yeah. So in regard of sixth schedule, what I understand, sometimes like what I feel personally, the giver is a breaker also. The maker is a breaker also. So they are making us to be independent, but they are the reason to break us also. So this is the request, and I want all the politicians, those who are the ruling parties and all, and the common people, they should understand that if they're giving us something, then they are ready to take it back also. In case of many things, which is in practically we can see in the BTC region also. And in regard of like women representation, this time the two nominees also, which is zero representation. So which is like a red signal that we are not giving a equal representation. No doubt the women are the very less participants in the region, I mean in BTR politics also, but the two nominees which is nominated by the governor, and that should be like two women should be come into the power, I mean with the nomination, so which is zero in number this time. So these are the things we have to rethink and renew a discussion. I agree with the earlier co-panelists that they are arguing like, and they are urging for like re-look at the things or re-discussion about the many issues regarding the sixth schedule. And of course it is one of the ground voice जैसे मतलब जिसके बारे में बहुत ही कम लोग बात करते हैं. So we are very much happy to discuss about this topic. And of course, like regarding sixth schedule, the people where this schedule has implemented, the common people, they don't have any idea, to be frank. And those who are the like coming with the sixth schedule to self-rule themselves, and they are also, I think, by the inception of power only, they are reading and they're trying to understand about this. And this is the one problem, like because we are not getting into the sixth schedule, we are not understanding in spirit what is exactly self-rule means, self-determination means, and the sixth schedule provisions, what they have guaranteed for the protection of the tribal people, because we are unaware about it. The common people are unaware about it. And this is the result that, and this sixth schedule become an एक पापेट जैसा, जैसे कि इधर ले जाने से उधर, इधर आने से इधर. So वो एक situation we can see. So I think this is the need of the hour to discuss and to rethink and to relocate the problems of these district councils. Especially, I will not point out the other northeast regions, district councils, especially within the Assam. So thank you, the organizing team, to be part of this our own council's problems and issues to know and discuss. Thank you so much. So this much I would like to conclude. And then anti-corruption machinery, so which is one of the major problem, like all this is not exceptional to only this BTC or Dima, Hasao or Karbi, Anglong or Kachar, but everywhere corruption is there. But the anti-corruption machinery to be set up in any in all the department to stop, like whatever money we have found, we have received, so that this can be utilized in a proper manner. And corruption is one of the major hindrance in the development of the councils also, which I would like to highlight in my short note. Concluding now. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yes.
Hello. Yes.
Yeah. What I have observed in the last 15 to 17 years, there are enough provision in the sixth schedule. But what we have is we lack political consciousness, as someone has said. That is very true. We have not used our legislative power. legislative power in implementing some of the schemes. We have lose ourselves for the last 15 to 17 years. So what we need is a political consciousness and bargaining of powers. Bargaining powers we need. And now what the problem, there's another problem that is a recent political problem is that political challenges with some of the national parties. Like there is what I have heard, it's a special mission going on in Assam, especially in BTR. Like BGP is trying to control us. If such trend takes place, then those national parties will not understand the real issue of the people. What we see, only the regional party can identify it. We can bargain for us. And national parties will never bother to look all these problems. So they are challenges to take up with those national political parties. Thank you.
Thank you so much. With this, we have almost come to the end of today's session. But before we wrap up, Daniel has agreed to perform for us. So, Daniel.
The last discussion.
Indeed.
Is that the name of your song that you're going to perform, The Last Discussion?
No.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Actually, I connect. So shares now. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes. Daniel, go ahead.
Your signal is very weak though.
Yeah, so you can turn off the video.
Just give me a second, okay?
Yes.
Is the connection better now?
We can hear you, Daniel.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
पानी इतना जोर से गिरता क्या दुनिया को टाइम खत्म हो गया बर्फ इतना ज्यादा दिसंबर में गिरता सब बोलता स्नो गिरा क्लाइमेट चेंज हो गया जंगल में हम लोग कौन फिर जाने लगेगा शायद फिर से सब ट्राइबल बनेगा जंगल भी खुशी होगा लैंडस्लाइड इतना क्यों जाता होता डेवलपमेंट तो लगता रोड काटने लगता मांगसो इतना ज्यादा दाम भी होता तेरो महीना हो गया सैलरी काउंसिल से नहीं दिया पानी इतना ज्यादा क्यों गिरता क्या दुनिया को टाइम खत्म हो गया हाँ नौवा जैसे नौका सब बनाने लगेगा नेचर को हम कहाँ जीतेगा क्लाइमेट चेंज हो गया क्या जंगल में हम लोग कौन फिर जाने लगेगा फिर से सब ट्राइबल बनेगा जंगल भी खुशी होगा क्योंकि पानी इतना thank you everyone
Beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you.
Nice, nice.
Thank you so very much for the
Oh, I'm
thought.
surprised. I have a question in chat box. Like, is this Daniel singing? Oh, it's a beautiful, beautiful.
thank you so much
So with this, we have come to the end of today's program. Wish to thank each speaker once again. So, Meera.
Yeah. Vidisha, do you want to go first? Vidisha, are you there?
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Meera. This was such an enriching session, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining us here. To all the listeners who had joined in Facebook or over Zoom, and to the speakers, we are so grateful. And for even though like we have taken a lot of your time, thank you so much. And also, it was very important and helpful because we all here would agree that these issues and these challenges or these aspects of the autonomous councils are so less talked about. And but now, as you know, the as all of the speakers had pointed out, that it's high time we start talking about these issues, and also how the state, the Indian state, the central government or the state government has recognized these resource-rich areas which have not been granted proper autonomous rights over their landed resources, are attacking these areas for their resources. And of course, in the coming days, we expect to see more of it, given that from the in the mainland parts of India, as they have they have already exploited and explored most of the resource-rich areas. So Northeast is one of their favorite places now to explore and to take away most part of what is here. And also because even I would agree that in the progressive circles of Assam as well, we do have to question how well represented are the people from the autonomous councils, and how much do we hear them in the, even as the progressive voices of Assam, in those meetings, in the panels, maybe in the mainstream mass news channels, or the whatever meetings or conventions are held in Guwahati. How well do we discuss these issues? How well do we ponder over these problems being faced? What is the situation of people, the citizens of these areas? And when these rights were won over by the communities, by people in these areas, in these councils, this Indian state did provide constitutional safeguards, but what exactly was granted, and what more, a lot more needs to be ensured as well, as all of the speakers had pointed out so significantly. And we we have come to the hello, yeah. And also, would finally like to thank everyone, and do keep joining us for more sessions on Grounded Voices. This was the last session for this year. We will come with a new series in the coming year in January. And once again, thank you, everyone. We hope to hear more from all of you, as there is still a lot left to be heard, talked about, and learned from each and every one of you. And I think also everyone who has listened and everyone who will listen later to the recordings maybe will agree that it's time we take this issue seriously. And in all our discussions about development or rights or resource protection, and when we talk about uh, rights over means of production or rights over resources of such councils, and in all of the constitutionally protected areas of India, the councils of Northeast needs to be talked about more, because we have to agree that it's not much talked about and much not known about. So thank you everyone once again. Handing over to Meera.
Thanks a lot, Bidisha. I wasn't sure if I should have the last word, but it is actually a very overwhelming session. So I also wanted to add my bit of thanks giving to the entire team of speakers, and of course the moderator Amrita, and to Bidisha, who's in fact been helping in the curation of the series as well. So on behalf of Grounded Voices organizing team, thank you to all of you. It has been an extremely insightful session, actually. Definitely today's Assam session in particular, but also the previous 3 sessions in the series. And in fact, one common thread that connects both when we did the sessions on the PESA, 25 years of the PESA Act, with the 10 states where PESA is applicable and these 4 states where the 6th schedule is applicable. I think the common thread that really connects both is the fundamental question of autonomy. And also, I mean, with each speaker and with each issue being brought forth, one only realizes that, I mean, how far we are still away from real autonomy. So that is a continuing challenge and a huge question before both the 5th and the 6th schedule areas. In fact, we've also not been able to cover, there are some other states like be it Manipur or Ladakh, where also there are other ADC questions, although not directly under the 6th schedule, but hopefully sometime in the future. In fact, some of those friends have also been asking us if we can have sessions on those ADCs as well, but hopefully I will have them in the future. It has been an extremely rich and useful engagement and a very significant learning exercise, I think, for all of us as well, who many times don't get to listen to a lot of these details and perspectives. So thanks in no small measure to all the speakers of all the sessions, all the moderators, everyone who helped us curate these panels over these many months. And as Bidisha said, we are coming to the close. I mean, literally, this is the last session. This is the 49th session of this year. We started in January. So we are going into the next year's Jan, and it would be our 50th session. So we look forward to your participation and support to the Grounded Voices effort, wherein our constant attempt also is to bring in many of these voices which otherwise are not adequately engaged with. And we think it's our collective responsibility to listen to many more of these voices, understand, learn from, engage with, and build support and solidarity to all these struggles. So Zindabad, Jai Bhim, Johar, on behalf of the entire organizing team, the technical team, which has been constantly helping throughout, and to all friends who are part of this effort. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Meera.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Meera.
you.
All.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone who has been part of this. Thank you so much.